The air in the boardroom was thick with tension, a palpable cloud of ambition and resentment. The mahogany table, a relic passed down from our father, felt colder than usual. I adjusted my silk blouse, the fabric rustling like dry leaves, and met my brother's gaze across the polished surface. Lucas, with his disheveled brown hair and a suit that always seemed a size too big, looked at me with a mix of defiance and disbelief. He had just finished his rambling presentation, a collage of idealistic proposals that would surely bleed the company dry. "This company belongs to us both, Elara," he said, his voice echoing my father's old saying. The words, once a comforting promise, now felt like a taunt. I scoffed, a subtle, almost imperceptible sound. "It was our father's legacy, not a playground for your amateur ideas, Lucas." My voice was a blade of ice, honed by years of late nights and tough decisions that he had so gracefully avoided. The shareholders shifted in their seats, their eyes darting between us, their silence a testament to the power of the moment. The company, a tech firm our father had built from a garage startup, was my life's work. Lucas had always seen it as a safety net, something to fall back on when his latest artistic venture failed. I remembered the late nights I spent poring over financial reports while he was at some gallery opening, the countless sacrifices I made to keep the company afloat during the recession. My blood, sweat, and tears were woven into its very fabric. His contribution was a name and a vague sense of entitlement. I took a deep breath, the cold, stale air filling my lungs. This was it. The moment I would finally claim what was rightfully mine. I wasn't just firing my brother. I was cutting out the dead weight that had been holding me back for years. A small, cruel smile played on my lips as I prepared to deliver the final blow. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. "Lucas," I began, my voice clear and steady despite the tremor in my own heart. "Your services are no longer required at Sterling Innovations." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the nervous cough of Mr. Henderson, a longtime board member. Lucas's face, usually open and expressive, went utterly blank. All the color drained from it, leaving him looking like a ghost of his former self. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no sound came out. I watched him, a strange mix of triumph and a fleeting flicker of something akin to regret. But the regret was quickly drowned out by the years of frustration, the countless times I'd had to cover for his absences, his lack of commitment. He'd shown up to meetings unprepared, made impulsive decisions, and always expected me to clean up his messes. This wasn't just a business decision. It was a declaration of independence, a final, definitive statement that I was no longer his keeper. "Elara, what are you doing?" Mrs. Albright, a kind-faced woman who had known us since childhood, finally spoke, her voice laced with concern. I turned to her, my expression unwavering. "I'm doing what's best for the company, Mrs. Albright. What's best for our legacy." I gestured to the other board members, daring them to challenge me. No one did. They knew the truth, even if they were too polite to say it aloud. Lucas finally found his voice, a raw whisper. "You can't do this, Elara. Dad wouldn't have wanted this." His eyes, usually full of a carefree spark, were now pleading, broken. But I had built a wall around my heart, brick by painful brick. "Dad also wouldn't have wanted his company to crumble under mismanagement, Lucas," I retorted, my voice sharp. The finality of the words settled over us, chilling the room. The brotherly bond, once an unbreakable chain, had been irrevocably severed. The days that followed Lucas's dismissal were strangely quiet. His office, across the hall from mine, stood empty, its door ajar. I often found myself glancing at it, a phantom limb ache in my peripheral vision. The initial surge of triumph had faded, replaced by a hollow sensation. The company, now entirely under my control, felt vast and strangely lonely. I worked longer hours, burying myself in reports, strategy meetings, and endless phone calls. The pressure was immense, but I thrived on it, fueled by a need to prove that my decision was right, that I was right. The weather outside mirrored my internal state. A cold, crisp autumn had settled over the city. Gray clouds often obscured the sun, and a biting wind rattled the windows of my office. The urban landscape, usually a vibrant hum, seemed muted, the energy dimmed. Even the bustling streets below my skyscraper office felt a little less lively. I missed the casual banter Lucas would sometimes bring, the way he'd pop into my office with a ridiculous idea, or just to complain about a meeting. I missed the shared history, the unspoken understanding that came with growing up together, even if we were always at odds. One evening, staring out at the city lights twinkling below, I recalled a stormy night from our childhood. The power had gone out, and Lucas, terrified of the dark, had snuck into my room. We'd huddled under a blanket, whispering stories until the electricity returned. He was always the dreamer, the one who saw magic in the mundane, while I was the pragmatist, the one who kept our feet on the ground. Now, there was no one to remind me of the magic, just the cold, hard reality of my ambition. The company was mine, but the cost felt heavier than I had anticipated. Weeks turned into months, and the absence of Lucas became a permanent fixture, like a missing tooth. The company's performance, under my sole leadership, soared. We launched new products, expanded into new markets, and the stock price climbed steadily. Every success felt like a vindication, a silent message to Lucas that I had been right all along. The board members, initially hesitant, now lauded my decisive leadership. My name was whispered in industry circles with a new respect, a blend of admiration and fear. Yet, a persistent ache lingered beneath the surface of my achievements. It was the subtle way my mother's voice would drop when she mentioned Lucas, the strained silence on the other end of the phone, or the way some of our oldest employees, those who had seen us grow up, would avoid my gaze in the hallways. The triumphs felt a little less sweet when I had no one from my past to share them with, no one who truly understood the journey. One particularly rainy afternoon, as the city outside my window was shrouded in a mist, I stumbled upon an old photograph tucked away in a desk drawer. It was a faded picture of Lucas and me as children, standing in front of Sterling Innovations' original small office, our father beaming behind us, his arm around both our shoulders. We were laughing, muddy from playing in a puddle, completely oblivious to the complexities that adulthood would bring. My fingers traced Lucas's smiling face, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the kind, enthusiastic boy he once was, before the weight of expectation and ambition had driven a wedge between us. The rain outside seemed to intensify, mirroring the unexpected storm brewing within my own chest. The victory felt hollow, tainted by the echoes of a shared past I had so carelessly discarded. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. The constant grind of work began to take its toll. Sleepless nights were becoming the norm, fueled by strong coffee and an insatiable desire to maintain my perfect facade. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman with sharper edges, a permanent furrow in her brow. The city, usually a source of energy, now felt like a relentless machine, its ceaseless activity a mirror to my own frantic pace. The clear autumn days gave way to a harsh winter, and the cold, biting wind seemed to seep into my bones, a constant reminder of the chill I had cultivated around myself. One evening, after a particularly grueling negotiation, I overheard two junior employees talking in the break room. "Did you hear about Lucas Sterling's new gallery?" one whispered. "Apparently, his art is getting a lot of attention. They say it's incredibly raw and emotional." The other replied, "Yeah, I heard he sold a piece for a hefty sum. Good for him, after everything." A strange pang shot through me. Not jealousy, not exactly. More like a confused mix of surprise and a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. I pictured Lucas, paint splattered on his hands, surrounded by his creations, genuinely happy. A stark contrast to my own life, spent in sterile boardrooms and endless meetings. Was he truly thriving without the burdens of the corporate world? The thought was unsettling. I had always assumed he would flounder, that he would eventually come crawling back. But he hadn't. He was finding his own path, a path I had scorned. The crack in my conviction, once a tiny hairline fracture, began to widen. The news of Lucas's artistic success continued to filter through, small whispers in the periphery of my carefully constructed world. He was gaining recognition, not just locally, but nationally. Galleries in New York and Los Angeles were featuring his work. Each piece of information, though unsolicited, chipped away at the solid foundation of my self-assurance. I found myself searching for his name online, discreetly, late at night, in the privacy of my dimly lit office. His artwork, vibrant and expressive, conveyed a depth of emotion I hadn't realized he possessed. The weather had turned bitterly cold, snow occasionally blanketing the city in a deceptive purity. The chill seemed to permeate my apartment, a constant reminder of the emotional barrenness that had taken root. Even the bustling sounds of the city outside my window, usually a comforting white noise, now seemed to mock my solitude. I had everything I had ever wanted: control, power, and undeniable success. Yet, the victories felt hollow. The celebrations with colleagues felt superficial. There was an emptiness that grew with each passing day, a void that no amount of corporate achievement could fill. I recalled a conversation with my father years ago. "Success isn't just about what you achieve, Elara," he'd said, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "It's about who you share it with, and how you get there." At the time, I'd dismissed it as sentimental nonsense. Now, his words echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain. I had achieved everything, but at what cost? The image of Lucas, free and creative, stood in stark contrast to my own increasingly isolated existence. The glittering facade I had built was beginning to crack, revealing the raw loneliness beneath. The phone call from my mother came on a particularly bleak Tuesday. The sky was a uniform gray, and a fine, icy rain was falling, blurring the already indistinct city skyline. Her voice, usually so resilient, was thin and reedy. "Elara," she began, her tone a mix of pleading and quiet accusation. "Lucas is having his first major exhibition next month, in New York." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken expectations. He wants you to be there." My first instinct was to refuse, to dismiss it as another one of his dramatic gestures, a ploy to gain sympathy. But then I heard the catch in my mother's voice, the underlying pain. "He really misses you, Elara," she added, her voice barely a whisper. "We all do. Your father. He wouldn't have wanted this rift between you." Her words were like daggers, piercing through the armor I had so carefully constructed. The image of our father, a man who cherished family above all else, flashed in my mind. He would have been heartbroken. I hung up the phone, the receiver feeling impossibly heavy in my hand. The rain outside seemed to intensify, drumming a mournful rhythm against my office window. I walked over and pressed my forehead against the cold glass, watching the distorted reflections of the city lights. The ambition that had once burned so brightly within me now felt like a suffocating blanket. The power I had craved tasted bitter. Lucas's invitation, relayed through our mother, was not a plea for his return to the company, but a silent offer of reconciliation, a chance to mend a broken bond. And for the first time, the thought of reaching out, of admitting I might have been wrong, felt overwhelmingly appealing, yet terrifying. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. The invitation to Lucas's exhibition sat on my desk, a stark white rectangle against the polished mahogany. It mocked my unwavering resolve, a constant reminder of the chasm I had created. The winter air had grown colder still, and the city seemed to huddle in on itself, its energy subdued. Even the usually vibrant hum of my office felt muted, a reflection of my inner turmoil. I found myself staring at the invitation for long stretches, the names of galleries and critics swimming before my eyes, all praising the very brother I had cast aside. My life, once so meticulously ordered, felt like it was spiraling. The constant pressure of leadership, the endless meetings, the lonely dinners in my spacious, empty apartment. It all began to crush me. I was successful, yes, but at what price? The image of Lucas, vibrant and creatively fulfilled, haunted my thoughts. He hadn't just survived, he had thrived, built a life for himself entirely separate from the corporate world I dominated. He had found happiness, a genuine connection to something meaningful. I, on the other hand, felt increasingly isolated, my triumphs tasting like ash. One particularly dark night, as a blizzard raged outside, trapping me in my apartment, I broke down. The years of suppressed emotions, the buried guilt, the agonizing loneliness, all erupted. Tears streamed down my face, hot and relentless, blurring my vision of the city lights beyond my window. I saw the empty chair in the boardroom, the silent accusation in my mother's eyes, and Lucas's heartbroken face as I fired him. The weight of my actions, once dismissed as necessary, now pressed down on me, suffocating and unbearable. The cost of my ambition had become terrifyingly clear, and the regret was a sharp, searing pain. Of course. I will expand upon the two final chapters, Chapter 9 and Chapter 10, adding more detail and emotional depth while maintaining the narrative style. The invitation to Lucas's exhibition sat on my desk, a stark white rectangle against the polished mahogany, mocking my unwavering resolve. I told myself my absence was a calculated decision, a strategic move to avoid drama and public scrutiny. My presence would only complicate things, create a scene. But deep down, I knew it was fear, a gut-wrenching, paralyzing fear of facing the man he had become, a man independent, successful, and content without me. I dreaded confronting the ghost of our shared past and the irreversible damage I had inflicted. The city outside my office window was covered in a fresh layer of snow, sparkling under a pale winter sun, but the beauty felt distant, unreachable, as if seen through a pane of frosted glass. My mother called again, her voice resigned this time, the weary cadence a familiar ache in my heart. "He understood, Elara," she said, though I could hear the profound disappointment beneath her words. He hoped you'd be there." The single word, hoped, echoed in my ears, a testament to his enduring, perhaps foolish, belief in our connection, a hope I had ruthlessly extinguished. The exhibition was a resounding success, a triumph for Lucas, confirmed by glowing articles in all the major art publications. I read the reviews meticulously, each one a fresh stab of bittersweet envy and a profound sense of loss. He hadn't just survived my dismissal, he had blossomed. Life at Sterling Innovations continued its relentless pace. I signed more deals, expanded our reach, and solidified my position as a formidable leader. But the joy had evaporated, replaced by a grim, exhausting determination. The applause of the shareholders, once a source of immense satisfaction, now sounded hollow, like a faint echo in an empty room. I had climbed to the very top, but the view from up here was surprisingly barren. My connections were transactional, my relationships superficial. There was no one to truly celebrate with, no one to confide in, no one to simply be with. The cold urban landscape outside felt like an extension of my own isolated existence, a lonely path I had chosen, and now was forced to walk alone. The victory felt like a defeat, leaving me as cold as the winter air outside. Years passed. The months became seasons, and the seasons blurred into years. Sterling innovations continued to flourish under my leadership, becoming an industry titan. My name was synonymous with ruthless efficiency and unparalleled success. I had everything the world defined as achievement: wealth, power, respect. Yet the price I paid was an ever-present, internal chill. My reflection showed a woman who had achieved her every ambition, but also one who carried a profound sadness in her eyes. The city, once a vibrant backdrop to my rise, now felt like a cage. Its towering buildings a testament to my isolation, the glass walls a barrier between me and the world below. Lucas, I learned through occasional brief updates from my mother, had continued his artistic journey, gaining international acclaim. His art explored themes of family, loss, and reconciliation, often with a poignant undertone that felt painfully familiar. I sometimes saw his work in magazines, vibrant and full of the emotional depth I had stifled in myself. He had found a way to heal, to build a life rich in meaning and connection, while I remained trapped in the gilded cage of my own making. He had built a home. I had built a fortress. My relationships, if they could even be called that, were fleeting and superficial. Friends from the past had drifted away, unable to penetrate the walls I had built. My mother's calls became less frequent, her voice tinged with a weariness that spoke volumes about her disappointment and the chasm I had created. The company was my only constant, my only companion. But even its triumphs felt hollow, echoing in a cavernous emptiness within me. I had cut Lucas out of my life, thinking I was ridding myself of dead weight. Instead, I had severed a vital part of myself, leaving behind a wound that never truly healed. The scars were not visible on the outside, but they ran deep, a constant agonizing reminder of the brother I had lost, and the piece of my own soul I had sacrificed for power. The company belonged to me, but I had lost everything else. The view from the top was no longer triumphant, but just endless, chilling solitude. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more compelling content. Thank you for watching.